Ready? Okay. Hi, welcome everybody. This is the Chattanooga Tea Party. We're delighted to have you join us tonight. Tonight we have a couple of candidates for school board. First is the incumbent representative from District 1, Rhonda Thurman, and then the candidate for District 2, Tom Decosimo. Before we get to that, I'd like to proceed as we usually do at our Tea Party meetings. We'll start with an opening prayer and go to the Pledge of Allegiance. But again, I'm delighted to have everybody back, even though it's on a virtual basis right now. So if you bear with me for a couple of moments, we'll get right to the meeting here in just a minute. First, if you'll please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together and talk about public policies and education of future generations. Please help guide our leaders to make the best decisions for the broadest public good. And as we proceed through this challenging year, we ask forgiveness of all our trespasses and seek your grace for a renewal of our national spirit. We ask you this through Christ our Lord. Amen. And then if you'll go to look at the flag, and I'll just click on that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, again, I'd like to again invite Tom and Rhonda. Rhonda's on audio. Tom is with us in a picture. At least, you know, you get to you get two pictures here of us. And first of all, with Rhonda, of course, you know her as the incumbent representative from District 1 in Hamilton County, serving on the school board for several years. Tom Decosimo, he's a very, the Decosimo name is certainly a noted name in Chattanooga area businesses with his father starting Decosimo and Company. And Tom is running for District 2. Which is Red Bank and Signal Mountain. So what we'll want to do first to start off is to start with Rhonda. Rhonda, if you can first clarify some potential public misperceptions about the responsibilities of the school board. A lot of people tend to think that the school board has greater authority than it actually does. Can you address what are the primary responsibilities of the school board and address the board's limitations to help set the table for tonight's discussion, please?
Yes, the board has just very few primary responsibilities. Number one is picking the superintendent, and another is setting the budget. And then the third is making policy. Those are our three main responsibilities, and everything that we do falls under one of those three umbrellas. But the main one is picking the superintendent, setting the budget, and setting policy.
And when you talk about setting the budget really comes to you more or less as a fait accompli. Isn't that the case? I mean, you can only vote yay or nay on that. Is that not the case?
That is true. The administration, they make the budget. The superintendent and his staff, his administrators, they sit down, they get the budget together and they present it to the school board. And we can look over it and, say yes or no. And if we say no, then we go back and try to tweak it and change some things. But yes, it is the superintendent who sets the budget. It is really not the school board. We set the final budget by saying yes or no to what he says. But yeah, that's the way it works. The superintendent decides on the budget along with the CFO and others, and then they present it to the school board, and we vote on it. Yes, that's correct.
So then just to follow up, when it comes to something controversial like teacher raises or something like that, you have a limited input. I mean, you can provide input before the budget is provided, but it's basically the superintendent's decision. Is that not the case?
Yes, that's true. Sometimes, they do come to us, like the last budget that we did. These teachers, I voted for the teachers to get a raise because there was money at that time in the budget for that, and the teachers union came and said, well, that they had, rather than have a raise, they would rather us hire 180, I don't think it's 186 more employees. I think this ended up what it was, and rather than give them a raise. And they promised them that they would get a raise this year, that they were going to lobby for one, and they would get them a raise this year, and then you see what happens. So now we have another 188 people to add to our roll, add to our dole, I should say, instead of the teachers getting a raise. They made that decision. It was not me, because I voted for them to get a raise, and they voted to hire more people. So, yeah, but the superintendent and his staff present that to us, what the school wants, and we either vote it up or down. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Tom, can you talk to us a little bit about what prompted you to run, and what issues you see that are with the school board today, both positive and negative, basically the primary issues that concern you?
Yes, Brendan. My involvement really kind of goes back to 2016, when I saw up front and close what was going on with Unify Ed. I saw where Unify Ed had been funded with a $600,000 budget. I mean, $600,000 from just one of our local foundations, and others adding more to that to probably get to about 700,000. And I saw what their premise was. Oh, we're going to go in and we're going to make sure we get really good school board members, and we're going to get a real good high functioning school board to do great things. And I kind of looked behind who Unify Ed was, and it was startling to find out that they were Obama activists. Had been with the Obama organization for over 6 years, and that was troubling. It was troubling that all of a sudden we had an activist organization pretty much selecting who our school board was going to be. And in effect, the foundations were selecting who our school board was going to be. And that doesn't sit well with me. And then look at, when you look at the result, our Jonathan Welch, chairman of the school board, arguably, from what I understand, was a terrific school board member. He gets knocked out by a Unify Ed candidate. And it was kind of a stealth campaign. And next thing we know, there's a $34 million budget increase. And now the county commission has been changed just enough to all of a sudden, looks like the commission is going to pass a $34 million tax increase, while we know that the commission had preliminary results from the facilities report. At the time, we thought 750,000. We had no idea it was 1.3 billion. But we thought, well, what kind of organization would put forth an operational increase of 34 million when they had already gotten growth funds of 20 plus million, knowing that they're going to have in 2 weeks to turn around and tell our community, oh, and by the way, we need to reinvest in our facilities $1.3 billion over the next 10 years. Well, that's when I said, the school board is really an important organization. And I started moving towards that.
Okay. Where do you see, so the need for you to run is to help bring a little bit of balance to the school board, other voices in the community, make them a little more accountable, would you say?
A lot more accountable. I do have, the way I understand it, I think we've got, and look, I have great respect for teachers. They're some of, my most memorable people. I think all of us feel that way. Yeah. My time at Signal Mountain Junior High School, really just because of my involvement in what I was doing, really shaped me. But to think that 5 members of the school board are teachers, former teachers, married to teachers, children are teachers, I think there was an imbalance, and I did not see where the business acumen was represented on the board in a broad enough sense. Not that I'm not saying there's no business acumen, but then again, when you pass a $34 million budget that needs, a tax increase without giving any effect to a $1.3 billion facilities report, that's a lack of business acumen. And that's just really troubling. And so, yes, I think I thought I could bring my years of civic involvement and 40 years of business expertise to the board. And I certainly hope to get there and do that.
Rhonda, can you describe the state's basic education program, otherwise known as BEP, popularly known, and how does that affect our school district?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry, the air conditioner kicked on. What did you say?
I'm sorry. Can you describe the state's basic education program, otherwise known as the BEP?
Okay.
And how does the state, what's the state involvement and how does it affect our school district?
Well, I tell you, I have to say kudos to our state legislators because they have fixed a lot of things in the BEP that were unfair, and they have been working on that. So I say kudos to them. It can be a little bit better, but since there are so many different, I think there's like 141 school boards in the state of Tennessee. I don't know how many counties, about 95 or something like that. There's a whole lot more small counties than big counties, so we get outvoted. There's the big 4 counties, the biggest counties in state of Tennessee, and there's only 4 of us, and there's a whole lot more of them, so we're going to get outvoted every time because no state representative is going to vote to take money away from their district. So but the rules have been changed some, or the formula has been changed some. The BEP program is really, everybody says it's complicated. Some parts of it are complicated, the way they divide up things, but the overall view of it is it tells you for X amount of students, like for 43,000 students, they tell you how many teachers you should have, how many administrators you should have, and they break it down like that, and they give you so much per pupil, and then they give it to each county, and they have to work off of that BEP formula. And anything over and above that, Hamilton County taxpayers have to make up the difference. In Hamilton County, for instance, we have about over 500 more teachers than the BEP formula says that we should have. So for those 500 plus teachers, we have to pay 100% of their salary, 100% of their health insurance, 100% of all their benefits. The taxpayers of Hamilton County have to pick that up. And also it provides for some assistant principals. Some of our schools have 2 and 3 assistant principals. Some of them have assistant principals and dean of students and all different other kinds of things that the BEP formula does not pay one dime for. So that is really a lot of the reason that the Hamilton County taxpayers get hit so hard is because we have so many more employees than the basic education program says that we should have. And for those, we have to pick up the difference.
Okay. Let me ask both of you. There's certainly a lot of talk, and there has been for years, of school reform in the legislature, since we're talking about the state. What sorts of reform do you think would make the most sense? And what sorts of changes would you like to bring to the schools through the school board?
Is that for, are you asking?
Rhonda, I'll let you go on that one.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of things that can be done at the county level, and one of them is the curriculum we pick. Years ago, back when Jesse Registered was here, we started using this math program that would probably drive someone like Tom nuts. This new math that doesn't make any sense to anyone, but we're supposed to make it make sense to children, and all it does is confuse them and frustrate them. Every year that we adopt a new math curriculum, I ask, are we going back to basic math? Because I feel like if you teach a child basic math, you can just go from there in any direction that you want to go. Then you can add all of these other nonsensical things that they try to explain to children, like I say, that does nothing but frustrate them. Every year they've told us that we were going back to traditional math, and I think that every parent got a rude awakening when they had to start homeschooling their children, and they saw that instead of just doing basic math where you carry one and subtract one, which is the easiest way to do math, math is not something that we invented. Math is something we discovered. And so for these children to go backwards from when our forefathers, they did math a very simple way. And now we have children going back to counting dots, counting sticks, counting squares, dividing them up.
Back to the abacus.
Regrouping, exactly. Regrouping instead of, my grandson, he's 8. He did one problem. It was just a very simple addition, like maybe a 3-digit addition problem. And he's really good at math. He wins the math award a lot. He's a pretty sharp kid. And he was doing this math problem, and I'm watching him, and he's drawing all these little squares and all these little loop-de-loops and all these. And I said, Brian, what are you doing? And he said, well, now this is how we have to do it. And he said, I know what the answer is, but I'm having to do it this way. So they're not even concerned about the right answer. It's the process. And so they want them to regroup and put your tens in one and your ones in one and your hundreds in one and your thousands in one. It's just craziness. And so I showed him how to carry the one, and it took every bit of 2 lines or 3 lines on a paper. And he said, is that it? And I said, that's it. And he was just amazed that it was really that simple. And also they're teaching children to do math from left to right, which makes absolutely no sense to anyone that does math. You cannot do math left to right like you read. But so anyway, I need some help because other school board members really don't seem to think that it's that big of a problem, I guess. I think it's a tremendous problem. Yeah. I would really like to have some help from someone that can make us really completely and totally change. The superintendent said, well, Rhonda, with this math, our scores have gone up. I said, they had to go up. They couldn't go down. Our bottom fell out of our math scores years ago from using this. The other math we did use was so much more ridiculous than even this, but not a whole lot more ridiculous. But I would love to share that with Tom sometime so he can understand what I'm talking about. But those kinds of things we can change at our level. The discipline, we get reprimanded a lot of times for we break kids up into different categories about with this students in this category you're getting expelled more and getting more detentions than this one and than the other one. And I think that all kids should be treated equally. And because until a teacher can get control of her classroom and feel safe in her classroom, she cannot teach. And
teach anybody.
Yeah, well, the teacher told me, she said, Rhonda, I can educate 38, 40 kids in a class if they behave, but if they don't behave, I can't handle 15. Mm-hmm. So it's really subjective as to how many kids need to be in a classroom. It depends on the behavior. And the state, I wish sometimes the state wouldn't be so hard on us and reprimand us if you have too many students of any race or any category over another. I think they all ought to be treated equally. I think we ought to just take that completely off the table myself. But anyway, the discipline is one thing that I think that we can deal with at the state level. But like I said, our state legislators have helped us out on the BEP. But when you talk to the teachers, the only thing they ever want to talk about when you talk to the state, they won't really come in and tell you exactly what they really need in the classroom, because all they want to talk to you about is telling the state that they need more money for raises. And so many times they'll say, well, if you would pay teachers more, you would get better teachers. And I always ask this question, well, which one of the teachers do you have now that you want to fire?
Well, I think there's certainly teachers that would be delighted to go to the legislature and tell them the truth, but they're so busy with their classrooms.
Yes, exactly correct. But I'm talking about the real advocates, like the Hamilton County United, HCEA. Those are the ones that speak for the teachers, and you don't really get a lot of the real down-to-earth teachers who are in the classroom that are busting their behind every day in their classroom. I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect for teachers, but I just wish that we could get into another conversation with them, other than them always wanting money or always wanting. And that's another thing. They always want me to go lobby the commissioners for more money. That is not my job. My job is not to go lobby the commissioners for more money. That's just not my job, and I'm not going to do that.
Well, I like to refer to that group as Hamilton County United Against Accountability. Tom, just getting back to the reform a little bit, how do you like to do your math? Left to right, right to left?
Well, I want to address that, Rhonda, because what that new math did, my children went K through 6 in our Hamilton County schools. And what it did was it took me completely out of the loop. There was no way I could follow what my children were doing. And all it did was it caused screaming and yelling and crying and thrashing and, Daddy, you just don't understand, Okay.
All right.
You're right. I don't.
That's what I designed.
I cannot help you. And thank goodness, I kind of calm came over me very early and said, I am not going to ruin my relationship with my 2 children because I can't help them with their math. Now, Rhonda, I don't have the years of, being on the board that you've got. So you obviously you've got so much depth in knowledge and background. But what I do have is I've led the United Way effort, fundraising effort 2 years in a row, where we raised $12 million each year for the specific purpose. Really, 90% of what we raised went for 2 very related things. So 45%, say I'm pretty good at math, 45% of half of the 90, 45% went for preparing children so they would be ready to learn. Children ready to learn. The other 45, or half of that 90%, went to creating a home environment where the children could be in a place that supported that learning. So what we're getting, and I saw this firsthand, what our schools are getting are children not ready to learn. And then it falls on the schools. Oh my gosh, these children come to school with low vocabularies. They come hungry, maybe malnourished. My daughter is a art therapist. She's a counselor, art therapist. And she says, Dad, children cannot learn that have unresolved trauma. And whether that trauma be violence or neglect, we're taking 5- and 6-year-olds and trying to undo a lot of damage. And how can a school do that? And so part of what I see, what I saw with the initial desire to hire 400 new employees, Rhonda, the amazing thing was they went back to the drawing board and they came back and said, ooh, what do you know? We found all this money. We actually didn't need quite that 34 million to begin with. So they hired 186 or however many. But the issue was, well, we need counselors. Well, I understand that. I do. These kids have got to have help. But the schools are taking on the family's role. And that will never work. We could have thrown $100 million at the issue. You cannot replace a family between the time of, just call it 8 to 3, maybe it's 9 to 2. So, you know, everybody's got to stay in their lanes. Family, and we understand there's a terrible breakdown in families. Well, then that means the community needs to stand up. And that's where I think I come in. I think I've got the ability to commandeer the community, whether it be the business, the faith-based, the civic, to say, bring us children ready to learn now. Then our schools can focus on educating children, not playing the parent. And that's enough. We'll never do that. We'll never get there. So my idea of reform is kind of basic, and that is demand, and this is easier said than done, but you got to start somewhere. Demand from the community. We want children ready to learn. Mm-hmm. If we get children ready to learn, then we can teach them.
Well, yeah, you can work through churches with the reading programs and you know, getting young kids familiar with their numbers and their letters and sounding out letters.
And Ken, if I can just say something there, the school system does work a lot. There are a lot of really good faith-based organizations that help students. We also have a lot of help that comes from like Baylor students and those kinds of students that come in to help students. We also have what is called a kindergarten academy that, you know, to get parents up to snuff, tell them what their kids need to know in order to start kindergarten and those kinds of things. So we are doing some of that, but I'm with Tom. A lot more of that needs to happen, but it's really, you can't do that after they get into the schoolhouse. It really needs to be taken care of before they get there. And I think the best place to do that is a lot of churches, work with a lot of churches and other civic organizations to do that, to get them ready.
Rhonda, I want to emphasize that. My daughter for 5 years worked out at Poss Homes, not Poss Homes, I forget. Emma, I can't remember the one out in East Chattanooga, for 5 years. And they spent 2 hours a day doing it. She was at Baylor. Mm-hmm. But, and I've been meeting with a group of business and civic leaders and community leaders. There are a lot of efforts. The United Way is, in fact, kind of what I call the tip of the spear. You've got a lot of churches doing a lot of things. I've got a niece who teaches at one of the downtown Methodist churches, Centenary. She said there's a 500 children waiting list. They've got 100, maybe 100 students. What I'm envisioning and what I hope, and look, first of all, I mean, your role on the school board is to represent your district and represent the schools. I don't want to get away from that, but if we're going to really make change, we've got to bring the community together to say, we're going to do this, but community, get together, bring all these disparate programs together and make sure there's no group of children that are not getting the help from birth to 5. There are too many children not getting what they need. And I think,
and that's a group of children that can be very hard to track.
Yes. And I do believe that Chattanooga has the ability and the will. You're really seeing it right now. There is a movement afoot to say enough's enough. Mm-hmm. We cannot afford to lose another generation of children to illiteracy and not having math skills and not being able to read. You know, education is the path out of poverty. The opportunity for Chattanooga to come together and make sure that we're getting children ready to learn. Can you imagine what the schools would be like if we weren't trying to remediate? all these
Right.
issues,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, we would be doing, I think we'd be doing great things. So that is something I feel like I bring from business and community involvement.
Well, and that's something you can't, it's very difficult to quantify in a budget, and, you know, you putting money against it, you know, when the first 5 years of a child's life, they're not exposed to, you know, the letters, the alphabet, the numbers, and all those things. That puts them behind a curve, and the school system is really challenged from there on. Kind of switching things up a little bit, Rhonda, just going back to like Monday's meeting, the board's considering purchasing property at the Northgate Mall, the old Sears and J.C. Penney stores, I believe, for CSLA. Can you talk to us a little bit about where that stands, and is the board considering any alternative sites at this time?
Well, yeah, well, this is a real complicated issue. When this first, I think the board started looking at doing something like this the end of last year. You know, and there are a lot of schools that are in old buildings. I know Chattanooga Christian is in an old car lot building, and we see what they've done with that. So, I mean, this is not anything that's unheard of. It is done. I had a meeting with Mr. Isa and John Woods a while back. It's back, I don't know, maybe in April, May sometime, I guess. Maybe it could have been May. And they came and they talked to me. And at the time they came to talk to me, they wanted to renovate the buildings themselves. And then the school system kind of like lease it from them. The deal was they were going to charge $5 million a year for 25 years. They were going to redo the buildings, and then every year we would own a little bit more of the building. And when they were talking to me about that, they said they had someone that would do the financing, and that they were going to do, this is what they wanted to do. And I told them that, first of all, we didn't have $5 million a year to give them from the school system, that they really needed to be talking with the commissioners about this because they were our funding body. But I also told them, I said, I just want you to know I will not vote for this, even if the commission says that they're going to give us the money, because CSLA wants to go from a K through 8 school to a K through 12 school. CSLA is a magnet school. So therefore, another high school is not going to alleviate any of the overcrowding problems we have anywhere. We have an overcrowding problem in the inner city downtown and over in East Brainerd, and this will not help that overcrowding problem at all. And so I don't see any need in adding a whole new faculty, a whole new administrative staff, or anything. I just don't see any need in doing that, to add to our bottom line on our budget every year from now on, amen. We can't afford to do that. And so I was going to vote against it just on that premise alone. But there is no way. And then the last week, at this board meeting Monday, on Sunday, we got an email from the superintendent that said there was an update, and we were going to be discussing just out and outright buying the buildings from them and not letting them do all the renovations that we were looking at buying. No amount was attached to that email. Then when I got to the meeting on Monday night and I found out they were asking like 6.5, when I was trying to remember at the meeting, it seemed like they paid like 3.5 or 4 million for it. And then we're going to turn around and sell it to us and make a nice profit like that. Yeah, I just don't like that whole arrangement. It has nothing to do with who owns the building or who don't own it. I really don't care who it is. I'm seeing a problem there. I just don't like the whole situation, paying that much money. Number one, we're looking at buying the J.C. Penney building to put 3 elementary schools in, and to this date, they can't tell me which 3. It used to be DuPont, Rivermont, and Alpine Crest, and now they're saying DuPont, Alpine Crest, and maybe Hickson Elementary, and we don't have the money, the 2.5 or whatever million it is they're going to pay for JCPenney. We do not have that kind of money just to throw out on a building we may need, and probably won't be able to get the money to renovate it. So, and then too, we need to look at the traffic situation. There's lots of things we need to look at before we even consider this, and I'm a no vote on that for if nothing else, but the reason that we do not need another high school for CSLA. We can't afford it.
Well, that brings up another question, a related question, because, this came up partly as a result of a nosediving economy because of COVID-19, the shutdown and all. Does the state legislature need to consider legislation to allow for the ebb and flow? Because right now, as it stands, each year the school budget is required to increase or at least remain stable. But if you've got an economic hit on the entire community, how can you handle those ebbs and flows?
Well, I don't know, Tom may want to kick in here, but one thing different, Nashville's budget has been hit really, really hard because they rely so much on sales tax, and their bottom has fallen out of their sales tax. Here in Hamilton County, we rely a lot on the property tax. So it's a little bit different structure, so we're not being hit quite as hard as Nashville. But we don't know what else this is going to bring because Tom's in the business world. He understands the domino effect. We're just now starting to see these businesses that are never going to come back. And we really don't know how this is going to financially impact us here in Hamilton County because a lot of businesses are going to go under. As bad as I hate to say that because it grieves my heart because I know some of the people who are going to go under. But that's the difference in the two. But the state is going to cut our BEP funding. Yes, they are.
Okay.
Brendan, let me address something that Rhonda was talking about first on the buildings. The fact that the two promoters of this idea would meet individually with the board members is completely wrong. Now, if my main business is selling businesses. If we're going to sell a business, we package up the business we're selling, and then we basically approach 20 different potential buyers and say, here are the facts, bring us your best price that you'll pay for this building. Now, for this business. If the schools had decided we need a new building for CLSA, there should have been, surely there should have been a request for proposal where the issue, the facts were all put down in one one document, and then that document was given out to various people who expressed an interest in coming back to the schools with a solution. This is the idea that these guys would meet individually with the individual board members that is so unbusinesslike. It's just mind-boggling. I can't believe that happened, but apparently it did. And now, the board members are being asked to make what will eventually be a $30 million investment with no facts. And you've got somebody proposing something like pay us $5 million a year and we'll give you a little bit of equity every year. It just is mind-boggling. On the question of where our economy is, I think our economy is a whole lot stronger and will come back. But Rhonda's right. We are going to lose businesses. People are going to lose their jobs. We'll make it back. I'm very confident. But tax revenue, we don't know what it's going to be. And right now, I think the schools need to be really doing their part to be taking a hard look at cost of operations. Rhonda, we don't know how many kids are actually going to come back to school, right? I mean, a lot of them kind of went home and did homeschooling, and there might be a good number of kids who don't come back.
That's very true. That's very true.
So to be asking the board to make a decision without the facts is kind of like asking us, the taxpayers, hey, we're going to raise your taxes $34 million, but guess what? We're not going to tell you about the $1.3 billion facilities issue that we're going to lay on you in 2 weeks.
Well, Tom, the dirty little secret about this is when the first conversation started about the tax increase, the school board started at like $75 million or something like that, and they talked them down to 34. So that tells you about where we are.
I know. You know, one other thing on that, and I don't know enough about the Sears and the J.C. Penney deal, but how did those guys get tipped off so where they ran out and bought I think in November of 2019, maybe September of 2019, and now they're going to double their money. I'm all for free enterprise, but I am not for trading on information that not everybody has. So
right, and it's skimming off the taxpayers.
The whole thing's problematic. I just don't. I don't know. I don't have all the facts.
Well, this brings up another question, because I know the school administration has a budget officer, essentially, but does there need to be more transparency regarding the decisions, the financial decisions the schools are making, and then presenting to the school board as, you know, kind of a take it or leave it proposition, where it seems to me the school board is a deliberative body, and that's the forum, the appropriate forum to bring some of these financial challenges, but a lot of time there's no transparency in what the schools are sharing, or the information that the schools have before they decide to share it. And, you know, sometimes, and we've seen it in the recent past, blindsiding the school board, not to mention the county commission.
Well, Brendan,
is there any legislation that you're aware of, or would you recommend any to help make that process more transparent?
Well, and I really want to hear Rhonda's thought on this, but we had a meeting with our CFO, with the school CFO. This is back before I was going to be involved in the school board race. So we were going over the budget. And there was a $12 million pickup in the budget. And I said, how did that happen? I mean, that's a pretty big number. That's a lot of what they call couch money. You know, you reach down the couch and you pull out a couple quarters. 12 million bucks.
I wish I had that couch.
Well, I'll tell you how it happened. So we're talking, and I'm not going to besmirch the CFO, because this is the way they've done it. He said, well, at the beginning of the year in our budget, we budget for a 100% as if we're going to fill every position. That's our budget. But we know we're lucky if we're going to get 92% full. So right away, you pick up 8%. And then in the first, he was explaining it, and you know, look, again, I'm not versed on it as well as Rhonda, but then in the first couple months, apparently you have a lot of attrition. Teachers leave, people leave, they don't replace them. They know that's going to happen every year, and that provides a $10 to $12 million cushion every year. Well, that's not budgeting. that's not budgeting. Budgeting is budgeting what you really expect is going to happen. So, Rhonda, I probably know enough to be dangerous.
No. I think you're actually right on, Tom. This has been something, and I'll tell you, some of these superintendents have been masters at this. They just keep these positions there and they fund them, and so a lot of people wonder how they end up finding this money. Well, this is how they find it in these unfilled positions. They're still on the books. And I tell you what, Tom, when you see our budget, you'll understand how this is so hard to track because you don't know who is in what position. And when you ask for organizational charts with names, it's easier to get into Fort Knox than to get that, I'll tell you.
Well, I'm going to get a organizational chart with names and numbers. You can't manage an operation without it. That's the majority of our spending.
And do you know, I have asked for that at least 3 school board meetings. I've asked for it out loud in front of God and everybody, and no other school board member ever joins me on that, thinking that we need to know that. That's bothersome to me. But we do have school board budget meetings, but they come and they show it to us, and there are sometimes when there's never even one question asked. I mean, you have a $430 million budget and nobody's questioning anything in there. It's just crazy to me that, you know, you think you're going to have a lot, everybody runs for the school board demanding accountability, and then you get in meetings and it's just, and another thing, you have the calendar, our school calendar. It's amazing to me that the teachers help set the school calendar instead of saying, is this educationally what is best for the students? We continue to ask the teachers what they want instead of, is this educationally sound for the students, which is what we should be looking at.
Well, Rhonda, let me mention one more thing that I and this group of business people that the CFO met with, he started telling us about step increases. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any, there was no pay increase. And look, I mean, I am all for the teachers. You know, obviously I want to have good teachers, but we just want to have, we don't want the glass to be opaque. We want it to be clear. We just want to see what's really going on. And I said, wait a minute, aren't these step increases raises? No. They're step increases. I said, I think they're raises. And after the meeting, at the end of the meeting, said, you know what? Yeah, they're raises. Yeah, that's a good point. So
semantics.
Yeah, and anyway, I just earned me some.
Well, let me take that a little further because, you know, just talking about the budget and the financial situation. I mean, in the last year, we had the so-called cream scheme that came out of the blue that, you know, where people were fraudulently basically stealing money from the school system, making a buck on their own. And so it just brings up a question. Do you think there should be an investigation by the TBI on who in the school central office tipped off the developers, just going back to the, you know, the JCPenney, the Sears, the Northgate Mall thing, who tipped off the developers ahead of the school system purchases in order to hear their proposals? And apparently that was the only proposal that was gotten.
I have no way of knowing that. I would like to know if somebody did that on purpose. I really don't know, but the cream scheme thing really should have never gotten to the point where it was. Somebody in HR, somebody in benefits should have caught that way before it happened. And that's another. It's too long for me to get into here, but there were a lot of people that were accused that really were kind of, in my opinion, were being used as scapegoats. And I took up for those people, and that's another thing people need to understand. I wrote quite a long letter in the Chattanoogan about it. because I went to bat for the people always say I'm against teachers. Well, I tell you what, I've gone to bat for many teachers while I have been on this board that some of the other board members didn't want to touch, because we're always told at school board academies and things that, you don't get involved in personnel issues. And I can see that to a point. But when you see that people are really being done wrong, I cannot stand by and watch it happen. Because, people go to school for years to become a teacher, and then just because they get a principal who's maybe not worth a flip as a principal, and all their faculty wants to quit, and then they're cutting teachers right and left, young teachers who are just getting started, and they're ruining their teaching career. Maybe these teachers could go to another school and maybe, do very well. But, I try to take up for those teachers, and I've also went to bat for them to say that if this principal doesn't want them in their first 3 years, if you were non-renewed by one principal, you could not reapply for a job in Hamilton County Schools. Now, that has been changed, because I do know some teachers who have been non-renewed and have gone to other schools. Other principals have hired them, and they're doing a fantastic job. Maybe it's a personality conflict with a principal or something, but I have stood up for many, many teachers in that situation and tried to help them find a principal that maybe would hire them on. And I know I have a few in my district, and those teachers are faring very well. And it's not fair because sometimes these principals that get rid of all these teachers and cause so much ruckus, the next year they're fired. So they've just ruined a lot of people's careers for absolutely no reason, because they were not good administrators to begin with.
Well, and I've heard stories about principals that are doing very well at one school or another, and then they get shifted to a different school. And so it's like a school that was behind and that was catching up. I think this happened to Brainerd High, if I'm not mistaken, a few years ago, gets shifted to a different area. But those are personnel decisions that you have, I guess, limited input to. Is that correct?
Yeah, because yes, we just have one employee. That's the superintendent, and that's always who I go to. Dr. Johnson can tell you I'm not shy. He, I'll send him an email 3 or 4 times a day in some cases. If I see something or hear something, I want to know what's going on with this. Is this the truth? I want to hear your side, because a lot of times after you hear the other side, you kind of see where they're coming from. But sometimes things are just not copacetic, and I do just, I want an explanation from the superintendent. Because I don't want people saying, because they kind of lump the school board and administration all in one. They don't know the difference between the school board. They'll say the school board did this, and sometimes it's the administration that did it and not necessarily us. But, I just kind of like to know what's going on, making sure we're treating our people right.
Well, let me go back. Go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
I was going to say part of the financial transparency is not necessarily to save money, but it's so we can properly allocate the money where it belongs. So look, for every dollar that is being spent, and I don't know the extent to which we have a bloated bureaucracy. I don't. But I sure do want to know for a fact that we don't, because if it is, that money needs to get down to the teachers. I mean,
that's true.
Look, our teachers, I want to be very clear. Our teachers are at the front line. It's not the bureaucracy. When you've worked in business and when you've worked in the civic world, I've been chairman of Richmond Graduate University for 2 terms. We don't have people, we don't have a community we can go to and raise taxes to pay our overhead. We manage that overhead like it's our own money, because it is. If we run out of money, all the board members need to slap leather to keep the school afloat. I want that transparency, not just to look at the taxpayers and say we are running our schools efficiently. I want to make sure that money is not getting wasted up on the bureaucracy when we need to be pushing it down to where it belongs, and that's to the schools and the teachers and the principals.
Well, one thing back in 2008 that a lot of people have forgotten about, but when I first got on the board, I heard that we were paying out in excess of $100,000 to some people in unused vacation days when they retired. to people in the administration, because at that time they could have unlimited vacation days and they could just build them up. Of course, they were getting, maybe 24 vacation days a year, and so they weren't taking them all, and they were just building them up and building them up and building them up. And so we were writing out checks, in some cases over $100,000 a year for unused vacation days when people retired. I was just astounded at that. I had to go to the state of Tennessee to get the information because I could not get it from the board. At that time, the people I was on the board with, they were not interested. They did not want to make the people, I guess, in the administration mad. I went, however, to the state of Tennessee, and the state of Tennessee told Hamilton County to release all the information to me immediately. And they did. And due to that, back in July, I think, of 2008, we capped the vacation days, and it's still too rich, in my opinion. This is maybe something Tom might want to look at. We capped it for 12-month employees at 1,680 hours. That's still pretty rich for when people retire. But those are just some of the things. You talk about paying it out to the bureaucracy, and it's not getting down, because in some years we were spending out almost $1 million a year just in unused vacation days.
Well, Rhonda,
and stuff like that's crazy.
Look, our accounting firm, which had 300 employees, we had a rule: it's use it or lose it.
Right, exactly.
Vacation is to be taken.
Yes.
You have vacation because you want you want people who are well rested. Foregoing your vacation to get $100,000 check when you check out, again, ours was use it or lose it.
And really, that's in my opinion what it should be now. But that's something else. It's just not the stomach for some of the school board members to get back into this fight again, because it was quite a fight to get this changed even back in 2008. I think it's time to revisit it. But and also another thing that we've done are the fees. Charging parents fees. Went to the state about this. Actually, it was my sister that went to the state because she was a single mom with children in school, and she was tired of her children getting embarrassed at school because she didn't have the money to pay their fees, and sometimes she would forget to send the money or whatever, and they would embarrass her children at school. And so she got fed up with it and went to the state, and the state told us to cease and desist embarrassing children at school and giving them a thing, you haven't paid your
bill collectors. Yeah.
It's just crazy, and embarrass children in front of their peers. It was just totally uncalled for. So they told us to cease and desist. You could request fees, but you could not require them. This last year, we did put money in the budget for the fees to keep parents from having to come out of their pocket with more fees, but still, the fees are terrible for playing sports. I played every kind of sport that had a ball in it that a female could play at that time. And my parents never had to pay anything for me except buy me some tennis shoes to play basketball and volleyball. Now to play football or sometimes it's $600. Parents have to raise $600 and some, depending on which sport it is, $400, $500, $600 for your kid to play sports. Same thing with band. If you want to be in a marching band, some of these, we're talking $1,000 here. And, we need to rein that in. All parents do not have the ability to get out and raise that kind of money. And a lot of kids are left sitting literally, not even on the sidelines, but not even, up in the stands because their parents can't raise the money or won't raise the money.
And can parents see exactly how that money is allocated?
Oh, yeah, they buy uniforms. And so there's another thing. We used to have uniforms that, you'd have one uniform and you'd pass it down to the next year. And then every so often you'd have a rotation of when you'd buy new basketball uniforms, new baseball uniforms or whatever. And now we do it a little bit differently. But those are things that we can look at and try to make it easier on parents because they are our customers and they are paying all of our salaries. So that's just a few things that we need to look at, I think.
Well, obviously, one of the challenges that the system has had, many school systems across the country, not just Hamilton County, has been, you touched on it earlier, the subject of discipline, school discipline. And of course, now the controversy surrounding George Floyd's death, trying to defund police, and that issue has come up on the school board too. about SROs, which just recently got an expansion of funding, if I understand correctly. Where do you see this going? And I mean, isn't it dangerous to even contemplate removing SROs from schools because we do see a fair amount of violence from time to time?
Oh, well, I mean, this is one thing that some of the schools clamored for, wanting, SROs. And we finally got the funding to do it. And now we're getting calls from some groups wanting us to do away with all of that. I just can't see that happening. I hope it doesn't happen at this point. What we need to be concentrating on right now as a school board is getting these kids back in school this year. Mm-hmm. And they missed, so much school at the end of last year. We're using some of the care money from the state trying to get these kids up to snuff so they can get back to school, kind of get them, ones that missed out and maybe didn't have the internet access and weren't able to take their online classes for whatever reason, trying to get them ready to start back to school. That's where we need to have our attention. And I don't want to be forced into having to have this fight at this time. Let's get these kids back in school, do it in a safe way, give these kids some sense of normalcy, give them a kid's life back, and let's get started back. That's what we need to be concentrating on, and I really hope that we're not forced to have this fight as we start back to school.
Okay. Tom?
On discipline, and again, Rhonda knows better than I do. I guess we had a 40-page discipline manual that the teachers basically, from what I understand, said, forget about it. It's just too complicated. And, I think the Pollyannic view, maybe from my point of view, is why not have a fair, effective, and enforceable standard of conduct. I guess it's too much to remember back to Signal Mountain Junior High School when Leonard Skaggs in the shop department made aerodynamic paddles for every teacher, my mother including. But I'm going to tell you something. Dr. Dell L. Carter, who was our principal, went on to become superintendent, right? And I'm sure was good. I met his paddle twice. Once when I deserved it, and a second time when I was around a crime being committed. Okay, and it taught me never to do the crime again, which was squirting ketchup on an 8th grader. I was a 7th grader. He had stolen my French fry, and I got him. That was a bad mistake, because when they whacked you on the back of your thighs, I mean, it hurt. And the other one, I was standing around some bad actors, not terrible, they were breaking line, and we all got called into his office. That's the last time I even dreamed of breaking line. I've never squirted another person with ketchup. Something I will never.
That's ever good do. To know. True confessions here from Tom Decosimo, friends.
You've got to take what I just said and say, corporal punish. I guess you can't even talk about it, and I'm sure I will learn that if I'm fortunate enough to take my place on the school board. But boy, I can tell you what, it was a very simple situation we had at Signal Mountain Junior High. If you stepped out of line, you paid the price. We just didn't step out of line very often.
Yeah, well, up until Dr. Johnson got here in Hamilton County, just to give you up to date to where we are, up until Dr. Johnson came, we were still allowed to paddle in Hamilton County. He took that off the table, and so we're not allowed to do that anymore under his leadership. And I don't know how some of the teachers are faring without it, but that was taken completely off the table here.
I'm sorry to hear it. My father, I'm fifth 9 children born in 10 years. And in my father's closet was a paddle appropriately named the Board of Education. And I'm going to tell you something, you know, just like Dr. Dale L. Carter, nobody likes to get smacked across the back. It didn't hurt anybody. It didn't leave any kind of welt or bruise, but, you know, just something you remember. I can remember every time I've ever been paddled. And,
It gets your attention.
It gets your attention. Kids need it, but I'm not going to fight that fight right now.
No. This, you know, one of our main goals, or one of our main jobs, I should say, as a school board, is to provide a safe, clean learning environment for our students and faculty. And that's, you know, I think that I have a principal friend, and his theory was, if you are 18 years old and you are not on track to graduate and you are a chronic discipline problem, you need to go take a GED or do something, get out of the schoolhouse, because all you're there for is to cause trouble. And I think that's a very, you know, a very good rule. If you're 18 years old and you're not on track to graduate, no matter how long you stay in school that year, you're not going to graduate. You're now an adult. You need to go take a GED, go to adult high school or something, and move on. So you're not a problem for so you can't use the school as your stage for whatever reason. So, you know, there are things that we can look at doing, but we should not be running schools where where teachers and students are afraid. That is just not acceptable.
Well, let me run down to like almost a final question, and then I'll ask you both to kind of sum up your thoughts on this. The school board sets policy, yet the central office faculty do not fall under the same policies as Hamilton County employees due to honor, you know, for the internet, other such things. Would you be up for setting up similar policies that Hamilton County employees follow for central office, at least around social media and so on?
Just exactly, which were you referring to? We just redid our policies, and I don't remember there being a big discrepancy there. Exactly what are you talking about?
Okay. Well, this is just a question. Just okay, responding to official queries, or, you know, queries from citizens.
Oh, well, I think you're talking about the open records. I'm just trying to follow exactly what you're talking about. Open records. Oh, well, by all means, everything that, you know, that we do should be open to the public. Unless we do have some meetings that are not open to the public, and they because we require some legal advice or some legal information, or a lot of times it has the names of students involved and all that, so we do not have to open those meetings. Anything else otherwise is public information and should be provided.
Well, and the other part of that too, Rhonda, is the fact that it appears that in some cases school assets have been used in political campaigns.
Oh yeah, that's been used against me, actually. Yeah. I mean, they even at one time used some of their signs out in front of their school for the political activity, like telling parents to vote for a tax increase or vote for a wheel tax.
They did that last year. Yeah. Yeah.
So and that cannot happen. And whoever does that is definitely a violation of our policy, and it should just not happen. Actually, you shouldn't be able to do political activity on any government property.
Yet it happens.
Yes, it does. Well, that's because that's a superintendent problem. If he's made aware of that a principal is allowing that to happen, then something else needs to happen.
Okay. Well, Rhonda, if you'd like to go first and kind of sum up your pitch to District 1 voters.
Okay, well, I just intend to do what I've been doing since 2004. I'm going to speak up for the taxpayers and students in District 1. I'm going to continue to listen to their concerns. A lot of the teachers come to me with their concerns, and I have gone to bat for some of them. I will not call any of them out, but they know who they are. A lot of times when the HCEA would not even give them the time of day, I have gone to bat for some of those teachers. I intend to continue to, like I say, work for my district. There's a lot of inequities, in my opinion, up in the District 1, number 1, Hickson Middle School. That's another reason I'm having a real hard time voting for a magnet school to get a brand new building and all of our efforts going into that when we have Soddy Daisy Middle School that is in really bad shape and needs to be replaced. And it is a neighborhood school, and it is a zone school for many students. And magnet schools are not zone schools. You go there by choice. These kids don't have a choice. That is their zone school. And I'm going to fight to get Soddy Daisy Middle School, a new school. Also, Sale Creek High School is the only school that didn't have a football field. The only high school in the district did not have a football field, and we're working on that, and hopefully that will be finished by somewhere around Christmas time or something like that. But there are a lot of things in District 1 that have been accomplished, but we have a lot more to go. But like I say, I still plan to stick up for the values of the people in District 1. I was born there. My family, almost about 99% of my family live in District 1. I know the people of District 1 and know what they want, and I feel like I speak up for their values, and I'm not afraid to. I'm not a rubber stamp. I speak my mind. A lot of times I lose votes 8-1. And so this is what I can't understand. I don't know if my opponent is going to vote differently than I do, but I don't know what they think a 9-0 vote's going to change. People say, Rhonda, if people like you on the school board, the reason the system is like it is, I'm thinking, what do you mean? I never win a vote. So I'm doing everything the other 7 or 8 board members want every time. I hardly ever win a vote. So I don't know how I can be to blame for anything that's going on in the school system. I just wish every once in a while they'd do things my way. Things might look a whole lot different.
There you go. Thank you. Tom?
Well, I'm running for a school board seat for District 2, which you left out a couple neighborhoods, Stewart Heights and Rivermont. Seems like a big district. Really, from the Continental Apartments up Hickson Pike North. Mm-hmm. So we do encompass 8 schools, 2 high schools, 2 middle schools, 4 elementaries, one of which is Rivermont Elementary. Of course, we've got Red Bank, which just is a remarkable community. I have I've enjoyed so much getting to know the people of Red Bank. Just truly I'm going to say it again, a remarkable community. Of course, Signal Mountain, Rhonda, you've been up there a while. I'm the 5th generation Signal Mountaineer. So we've been up here for a while. So look, District 2 is who I will represent, but I also represent the entire county. We're a board to move education forward in Hamilton County. And what does that mean? We want children who we say have a fundamental right to what I call a foundational education. I've heard this word excellent education. We're going to excellent. I don't know what excellent is. I know what foundational is. Foundational means a child, when they leave 12th grade, a young adult, they're ready to either go to college, go to trade school, hopefully, enter the workforce and have be lifelong learners. That's what I consider foundational education. I want to talk about parental responsibility. I believe that the parents, the family, have the primary responsibility. Now, we talked at length on this. If the family's broken, community step up. I feel like I have that kind of ability to, I know who the players are. We can bring this community together to say, bring us children ready to learn. No child, I don't want to sound like George Bush here, but no child should not have the potential to learn. We have to have early age literacy. And this is what we worked so hard with at the United Way. By third grade, be reading on third grade level. That's a big lift, but we've got to get there. And our teachers, they've got to have competitive merit-based pay taken into consideration where they teach. I mean, for the teachers who are in those really tough schools, let's get the best teachers we can. And you do it by having competitive merit-based. We talked about the importance of conduct, a simple standard of conduct. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Not 40 pages.
Conduct yourself as a responsible human being who respects yourself and your peers and your teachers. It's pretty simple. I could go on. I'm not. Fiscal responsibility, taking care of the taxpayers of Chattanooga. You know what? They've got a big piece of this. My children are long out of school, and they did spend a good number of years in public school. I'm still paying my property tax. I'm happy to pay my property tax if it means that we're training great children who are going to do well in the workforce. I hope to get on the school board because, Rhonda, you need support, and I want to help you.
Well, I appreciate that. I would, a lot of people get on the school board and say they're conservative, but when it comes right down to it, I'm thinking, well, maybe your definition is different than mine. But anyway, I pray for you to get there, Tom, and I'm going to run my race and hope that I get back on there, and so that we can, like I say, kids being able to read. You teach your child to read by the third grade, you can take them anywhere. They can go in any direction that they want to go, and I've always said, Abraham Lincoln learned to read by candlelight, as did George Washington, and all of our founding fathers did. I do not know why it takes so much money, because every time you talk about more reading, they keep talking about more money, and we should be able to do that without spending millions and millions of more dollars. I just don't understand the problem, but maybe we could get there. But that's my hope.
Well, Brendan, I want to thank you and the Tea Party for putting this on. Thank you very much. And
we thank both of you.
I really enjoyed being on with Rhonda, and I certainly learned a lot listening to her. So thank you.
I thank each of you for taking the time. I just wish you were here. I could bring you each a Tea Party coffee mug for old times. So
next time I see you, maybe you'll bring me one.
I'll do that.
Well, we need to get together sometime, because I don't like meeting like the Brady Bunch. We've been doing it a long time. I'm a people person. I like to talk to people and look at them, and but I'm just looking forward to where we can all meet together in person sometime.
Hey, Rhonda, I want you to know I got my hair cut today.
Oh,
I'm sorry you can't see it, but it's a real good haircut. Maybe not as good as you could have done, but it was good because the salon was open. And let me tell you, those women, I talked to them, and I will tell you, the lady who coiffs my hair, I gave her, I paid her for every time I missed her during the.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's what you should do. It's not that big of a deal.
That's good, because I did have some customers that did that with me, and we appreciate it. But I don't want to get into civil liberties. That's another talk for another day. But I know she appreciates it, and that's nice of you to do that.
Well, you want the person who cuts your hair to be happy.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have sharp implements.
Well, and I tell you what, I can make you where your mama can't recognize you. I tell you that. You don't want to make your hairdresser mad.
Well, thank you both. We appreciate your time and expertise. We look forward to the race. I need to remind folks about early voting coming around mid-July. The election day for these school board positions will be Thursday, August 6th. So please remember that, write that down, take the opportunity to learn as much as you can before going to the polls. And again, we thank you. We hope we're live and in person at this time next month for our regular Tea Party meeting. But again, thank you all for your time and attention. Take care.
Early voting starts July 17th.
Very good. Thank you very much.
If you're over 60, call the election commission. You can vote absentee if you're over 60 years old. Not that I am, but maybe you are, Brandon.
I am. Yeah. Y'all take care.
You can vote absentee now.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
I like showing up.
Well, there are a lot of people who might be afraid to get out. They shouldn't be, hopefully, but older people over 60, you know.
Yeah.
I'm over 60.
I bet you I have a few years on you. I don't know. So
I doubt it.
All right. Y'all take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Very good.